Good morning. Thank you for joining us today to this Pathway for a Renewable Future across Latin America, the Caribbean sub-region session. We're going to be starting 5 to 10 minutes late. We're still waiting for some of the participants to arrive. They're registering. It's a little bit early, so bear with us just for a couple of minutes. Thank you.
I also heard a lot of
May I please ask you to take your seats? We're going to start the session. I would like to welcome all of you to this session, Pathways for a Renewable Future across Latin America and the Caribbean subregions, the Regional Energy Transition Outlook for South America. The objective of this session is to present to you the main insights and recommendations of the previously published Renewable Energy Roadmap for Central America and the recently launched Regional Energy Transition Outlook for South America, and also to highlight their relevance for the wider Latin America and the Caribbean region. Both of these reports identify concrete areas for enhanced regional collaboration, electrification, grid integration, clean fuels, sustainable biofuels, and critical material value chains across the Latin America and the Caribbean subregions. Further down the session, we will also explore the modalities for which an energy transitional regional network will be presented by IRENA. This network builds directly on these regional sub-studies findings and recommendations. I would like now to make way for our first speaker, Ute Collier. She's the Acting Director of the Knowledge, Policy and Finance Center of IRENA.
Good morning, all. I'm very pleased to see so many of you this early in the morning, and I think we will actually have lots more people coming in as the session progresses, because I gather some people are stuck in, still in registration. So, my pleasure to welcome you to the first session of this pre-assembly day, where we, as we just heard, we'll be discussing progress in Central and South America on the energy transition. So globally, the energy transition, as you probably know, is gaining a lot of momentum. We keep hitting new records. So in 2024, on renewable electricity capacity specifically, we added a record of 582 gigawatts. And also for the first time, global investment in renewables exceeded that in fossil fuels. So that's great news. And despite economic uncertainty and, as we know, some geopolitical headwinds, there is a continued decline in renewable energy costs, which is accelerating deployment worldwide. So if we look specifically at Latin America and the Caribbean, particularly South America, which will be one of the main focus of this session, they have played a strong role in this progress, adding 23 gigawatts of renewable capacity last year, although, I mean, as you may know, this pales in significance compared to Asia and specifically China. But they are consolidating their position amongst the most competitive clean energy regions globally. But there is, of course, a but, that this progress is not yet sufficient to meet the objectives of the Paris Agreement. So our data shows that there is a significant gap to keep the 1.5-degree target from Paris within reach. And as I just mentioned, the energy transition is also advancing at different speeds in different regions. And this, to some extent, reflects diverse development stages, energy systems, and social priorities. What we are trying to do at IRENA is to support tailored action for these different countries and regions, and we've been developing regional and sub-regional energy transition outlooks. So they aim to translate the global ambition, the climate ambition, into locally relevant pathways and policy guidance. For Central America, we published the first regional roadmap in 2022, and that highlighted a decisive decade ahead. So while the region accounts only for a small share of global emissions, it's also highly vulnerable to climate impacts. including changes in precipitation patterns and rising temperatures. At the same time, Central America faces critical challenges, such as achieving universal access to electricity and clean cooking, meeting growing energy demand and reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels. These challenges coexist, though, with a strong opportunity to build a renewable-based energy system that strengthens energy security, supports economic recovery, and advances affordability and inclusion. We look at South America, by contrast, it already stands out as a global leader in renewable power, with renewables accounting for more than 80% of electricity generation, even more in some countries. Regional energy transition outlook for South America, which we've developed with funding support for the European Commission, for which we are of course very grateful. It demonstrates that the region can accelerate towards a fully decarbonized and inclusive energy system by leveraging abundant renewable resources, expanding electrification and scaling up sustainable fuels. And you will hear a lot more detail about this in this session. Of course, this transition will require significant investments, expanded interconnections and strong domestic grids. But it also offers substantial economic and social returns. And we need to keep this in mind, that, of course, renewables and the energy transition are important for climate action, but they also present a compelling economic opportunity. So in terms of the amount of investment we need, it's around 500 billion per year in South America alone. But if you look at our analysis, you will see that the long-term benefits far outweigh these costs. So just for example, by 2050, the transition could create more than 12 million jobs in the region, could boost GDP growth, strengthen local supply chains, and improve energy security by reducing reliance on fossil fuel imports, which is very important for a number of countries in the region. Ultimately, pathways for a renewable future across Latin America and the Caribbean must reflect the diversity of the region while advancing shared goals. So regional cooperation, strong institutions, and partnerships with public and private stakeholders are essential to unlocking these opportunities, the investment, building resilient infrastructure, and creating new value chains. This session provides an opportunity to explore how these sub-regional strengths can be harnessed to accelerate a just and inclusive and economically transformative energy transition for the entire region. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass over now. You're next, Ricardo, right? So, we will give you a lot more details now about our findings, and then we hope we can hear from some of you to get your insights as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ute. And now, before we proceed, I forgot to tell you that there's live interpretation, if English, Spanish, so if you can grab your translators if you need them. Now, I would like to give the microphone to Mr. Ricardo Borini. He's the head of Renewable Energy Roadmaps of the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center. He will be presenting the highlights of the regional roadmaps. Ricardo.
Muchas gracias, José. Muchas gracias, Ute. Ahora
Thanks so much, Jose and Ute. Now we're going to speak in Spanish, if you all agree. And it's a great pleasure to be here today. And I'd like to thank you all for coming. I think this discussion is something very close to our heart, to talk about the LAC region. And today we're going to talk about the outlook reflections, which is a process that we've been working on for some years in the region. And it's important to mention that we began that process with Central America. I can see here some of you You may remember we had strong interactions back then. And it was a very happy process, actually, because in Central America there is a lot to share. And in this panel, I'd like to hear from you about the contribution from Central America to South America, mainly regarding the market integration. And here the Central America study, for people who were not in that process, included the energy sector as a whole. So it's a roadmap bringing broad information in terms of transport, industry, buildings, and the whole supply side, mainly the power sector. So it's a study related to the global energy transition outlook. So we have a perspective of the global energy transition respecting the conditions, features, and specifications of each region, bringing that vision and that roadmap specifically per region. So as mentioned, in the case of Central America, we had interactions with the countries, with institutions, with such as OLADE, IDB, CAF, SOPAL. So next, we should say that in ARENA we have the REMAP tool. Now we have the so-called energy transition tool, which is broad and includes things per sector as well as infrastructure and supply side. In the case of Central American, South American region, we have the fortune of using the message model as well as the module plexus, so quite detailed for the power sector in South America. So it's a methodological approach in detail, bringing many interesting insights. And as mentioned, it's a collaborative process with regional analysis where the unit analysis are the countries. So it's a regional vision, regional perspective with an individual study for each country. So we have a brief for each country in that context. So which are the main points in the case of Central America? Just to remind you, that report is on our website, as Ute mentioned. And basically here, the main message is the potential of the region, united and interconnected, is quite solid. And what we suggest in terms of integration and infrastructure is to further increase the connection of CPAC to 2 giga. That's one of the main points we mentioned. And the unity of the region, in our experience, take into account the institutional evolution and the infrastructure evolution, and the way the system operates has great contributions for other markets. And what we saw here is that energy transition brings about benefits that go beyond energy. We're talking about bringing development to access energy, not just regarding electricity, but also for cooking, other elements, take into account the benefits of imports and costs and energy integration. That is, strategic perspective really brings cost benefits for energy systems, and the investment increase is boosting the economic growth and development. And there are 2 charts below that are quite interesting. And here, the planning based on a scenario in comparison to the most ambitious scenario towards 1.5, the level of investment is not so different, but the makeup is very different. As you can see here, we are, of course, investing more in capital-intensive units. And on the right, we can see the chart with the acquisition and fuel cost. And here we can see that the scenario of decarbonization in a more accelerated manner will bring about fuel consumption reduction benefits, also entailing advantages towards the long term. So right now, we can see equivalent savings similar to the increase of investments in the case of DES. So the benefits are quite large, and this is a win-win. That's the main message. There is a strong benefit in increasing the renal ambition when we feel and we have the necessary investment effort, as well as the sector transformation. So this is not just about reducing emissions, it's also about looking at benefits that are related to sustainable mobility, to modern cooking technology, to energy efficiency, to renewable expansion, and to interconnection grid expansion. On the next slide, we can see some main items that were mentioned in the report. We also have the Power BI dashboard per country, as mentioned, that country-based analysis. So I do invite you, once again, to observe the information and the messages in this study. Later on, we'll have a discussion moderated by Chris Lee, and I'd like to hear about the information you have from the region so you can share it about the Latin American region as a whole. So the first RETO, the first energy transition study in the region took place, and once we finished Central America, we began with Central America. And now I'm going to mention the main points observed in South America. The methodology is very similar. And what we did in Central America was that the Power BI model was quite detailed, and we used the Plexus model, which allows us to use the flexibility assessment in a very important manner. And the important topics we dealt with can be seen on the screen. So sustainable mobility is quite important here, not just for the electrification of the fleets and the public sector or the public transport sector, but we also have biomass and biofuels. Brazil and other countries are interested and quite strong in that process. And here we have the perspective of the combination between electrification and biofuels for the decarbonization process of the transport sector. Likewise, in the industry, we can see the massive potential of the region in bringing investment hikes in the industry, mainly due to its competitiveness in terms of energy cost, renewable energy, cheap energy, and the abundant availability that may bring about the effort to increase regional industrialization, not just for consumption, but also for exports. That's mentioned in the study, and that's quite interesting. And of course, we also need energy efficiency. We know that the cheapest energy is the one that is not consumed, and we basically give the service at a lower cost for energy use. So energy efficiency is dealt with here in detail per sector, also for buildings that have an important component of energy efficiency, but also in the industry and in transport.
I would like to draw the attention in terms of renewable. The region, with regards to consumption, it has a major potential greater than other regions in the world. It can achieve a decarbonization process in a very competitive manner. So what we can see here is that the energy is going to be cheap in all the regions. In terms of the renewable expansion, we could achieve it by country, and it's already happening, as Ute mentioned. The region contributes to the expansion of solar and wind and hydro. What we are seeing is that the integration of infrastructures in the region, and there are no colors in a way, it's just sheer economics. Um, Regardless of the politics, but the infrastructure integration will bring a lot of benefits, and there's money on the table, as we say. So it would be interesting to uh, look for this resource to have it as a win-win process. And we're not talking about to reduce the electricity costs and fuel, but also what does the investment potential mean in other sectors of the industry in order to bring in economic development based on that strategic regional position towards a global energy transition. So we are talking about a very important business model. That's why I was linking this with Central America, which created a single market, and it's already bringing in benefits, very clear benefits. And we also need to expand the grid or the network, the connection between the countries and the infrastructure within the country, the distribution power, so to speak. That's a very important item that we also include in the study. There we can see some benefits that I would like to share with you. Something that draws our attention, and it's similar to what happens in Central America. Look at the numbers, and there we have graphs that are similar to the ones that I referred to before. I don't know whether it's too small, the print is small, but on the first block, on the left, we have the PES and the DES towards 1.5, and here we can see, we can feel the accumulated investment in that period of time, and we see a stronger investment in the 1.5 scenario. The difference between one and the other is around 4 trillion, 4 trillion in that period in terms of accumulated investment. And we can also see the fuel reduction cost, and that graph is a bit more to the right. And we also perceive the reduction in expenditure around that same value. And the graph in the middle is the graph related to the acquisition costs. Basically, when you go and buy supplies or when you go and buy a car, that's more of a cash flow. Is a capital investment that's more related to consumers and less to investors. So these three graphs, and when we just combine everything, has a very similar message to what we saw before. The additional investment cost is similar to savings over time. So when we analyze benefits as an economic cash flow assessment, it's very clear that benefits are very, very strong. And we're not adding the externalities or other extra benefits on GDP leverage. This is just a cash flow analysis. And I would like to draw your attention on this. The region, the region offers an economic business case so that the society can do a more ambitious investment. And looking at the additional benefits, and that's what we can see on the left, we're not only talking about reduction emissions, but we're also talking about the fact that the GDP, it's going to be stronger in terms of an average growth of 1% when we compare PES and DES. And then hydrogen, we might not have time to talk about hydrogen, but the region has the potential to produce hydrogen, which is it's very competitive. We're around 22 megatons. This is an estimate that we calculated based on the projects that we have and that we see as viable not only for internal consumptions but also for the for exports. So it can bring employment, it can reduce fossil fuels, and the less dependency, which is far more important considering the geopolitical situation right now. And of course, it will strengthen the industrial value chains. The industrialization of green economy has a lot of benefits. All the all the industry green zones will be kicking in. And then I would like to also convey a message about the different stakeholders and about the different discussions that we are promoting in the region. Jose mentioned about the fact the energy transition network, which I would like to share with you. But what we see is that over the whole process, we saw the difference of the different institutions developing work on the topic, not only OLAC, and you are working on the energy transition, CIPAL, working with the Foreign Plan, the Global Commission for Foreign Planning, an initiative launched by Brazil. And we have discussions, initiatives in all sectors, bioenergy, hydrogen. So the idea is to look for that momentum for discussion in the region so that we can converge ideas, bringing ideas together, exchange ideas over the following months and years. We have some outcomes by sector. I'm not going to go into the details, but the main key message is about the potential competitiveness of the region. And on the next slide, we offer some recommendations, and we split this into two blocks. And let's start off with the block on the right. What we suggest is some key points for the South American region that could help to implement the benefits that we see in the analysis. So why not creating a regional framework or mechanism that could be applied jointly to reduce cost of capital? We achieved 500 million a year, but there are countries that have more and less experience. Why not having a joint experience, a joint mechanism, for example, de-risking mechanism, so that we can attract capital to the region in a shared manner? So a regional strategic vision to increase investment and infrastructure. Always bearing in mind that when we are together, we will reduce costs and we will increase GDP by doing that jointly. The next item is to implement an integrated regional electrical market. We have the experience in Central America, and we saw this, how it can benefit in terms of energy reduction costs. The IDB is very strong in that process, and we are working together with the OLADE and the AI, International Agency for Energy is also there. So the idea is how to achieve this integrated electrical market. And I talked about the value chain, the manufacturing value chain. We didn't look into the numbers, but we are talking about an investment that takes a lot from the figures that Ute mentioned. Why not bringing in the manufacturing supply chain into the energy sector, into solar and wind? We saw some experiences in Brazil, and there was some investments in the manufacturing industry. Why not having an integrated market and creating a taxes policy that could converge into having an integrated development of industry in the region? Another key message is that we saw that there are many initiatives to develop green hydrogen. We cannot have a hub in each country. We need to find an integration, and this is one of the suggestions that we make within this process. I not only mention about developing the manufacturing industry, but to strengthen the green industrialization. There are different items included, and it's within the energy development program, all to do with mining, fertilizers, the heavy energy industries, and that could even have a greater development. And of course, biofuels. The region is a champion in biofuel, but it can be more. What we can see in Erudito, we see that 50% of the final consumption for 2050 will come from biofuels. So we have to go, we have to deal with this, and the region has a great potential. And we could develop this to have an internal consumption, but also for export. The SAF, the SAF, and all what has to do with aviation and shipping, there has a great potential to strengthen these sectors. So it's a very relevant business case. And to conclude, why not creating intelligent centers in energy efficiency or in material developments to optimize the use of materials? We've had experiences in some countries, but we need to invest more in energy efficiency. So it would be very welcome to have a regional coordination or collaboration. So once again, this is a food for thought, and these are the inputs for the discussion that we will have in the next hour. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for this presentation. And now we will begin a segment of the session in which we would like to hear comments and feedback from country representatives and stakeholders on this presentation, on this report, on this discussion overall. I would like to welcome Crisley Guerra. She's an Associate Program Officer of Energy and Economic Outlooks in the IRENA Innovation and Technology Center. She's going to lead the discussion. Crisley.
Muchísimas gracias, José.
Thank
Buen
you
día a
very much,
todos.
Jose. Good
Damos
morning.
inicio entonces a lo
So
que
let's
es las intervenciones por
start
parte de los
with
países.
the
Tenemos también
interventions
representación
by
del
the
caso de
countries.
Holanda,
We
que
have
es el
the
organismo en Latinoamérica representando la
representative
parte de
of
energía.
Holanda who represents
Tenemos también, nos
energy in
acompañan
South America.
personal de lo que
We
fue la
have
COP30 de
people
Champions.
from the
Y también
champions from
tenemos
the
representantes
COP30,
de
and
los
we have
países de
representatives
América Central,
from
Sudamérica y el
Central
Caribe. Muchísimas
America,
gracias a todos por estar
Caribbean,
aquí.
and South America.
Sabemos
Thank
que es
you
un
very much
esfuerzo,
for being here, and we
la
know it's
verdad,
an
sobre todo
effort,
los que vienen de Latinoamérica.
especially for those of you
Y
who
bueno,
come
para
from
empezar,
South America. And just to kick off and to talk a little bit about the priorities in terms of energy transition, where it's at country level or a regional level. And well, this is going to be a dialogue. The idea is to have the dialogue. If you want to participate, please raise your hand and let me know. But I would like you to ask you to I would like to ask you to introduce yourself and what institution do you represent, and this time your name and your position.
Any volunteers to begin with a discussion regarding the priorities in energy transition in the country or in the region? Okay, so let's begin with the Dominican Republic. Thanks so much. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Charlie de la Rosa from Dominican Republic and the National Commission of Energy. Good morning again for Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Thanks for the opportunity. Speaking from the Dominican Republic and the Caribbean, allow me to underline 3 priorities to accelerate the energy transition in SEEDS. First, we need predictable policy and regulatory framework that reduce risk and shorten timelines, transparent procurement, clear permitting, and credible long-term signal so investment can scale. Second, for SEEDS, reliance and flexibility are essential. Modern grids, stronger transmission planning, and solutions such as energy storage to manage variability, reduce curtailment, and enhance energy security. Third, we must address the cost of capital through project preparation and blended finance, including the risking instrument that crawl in private investment while protecting affordability for customers. As a concrete example, by the end of 2025, the Dominican Republic reached 3.2 gigawatt of installed renewables. That is the 27.6% of national electricity generation, including 495 megawatt of distributed generation. And we have 1 gigawatt under construction with battery storage system planned, supporting both decarbonization and resilience, which are central for the Caribbean SEEDS. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias por los aportes. Y bueno, justo
Thanks so much for your contributions regarding these topics and the results of the study in the case of Central America and South America show figures to differentiate the investment, and we were just talking about the capital cost reduction. In the case of South America, we include also the electricity sector and the addition of energy storage systems. We're happy to know the countries are working ahead with renewables. We know they have the NDCs, and also we have this in the planning of each country. So let's continue now. Is any other country ready? Would any other country like to speak up? Also in the case of Olave, because we saw the energy outlook for 2025 has just been published, and there are a scenario analysis there. In that regard, we have Gloria Berenga. Could you please give us any hint of those results about the priorities you see at Olave in the region? Thanks so much, and good day, everyone. I'm Gloria Lorenga, the Director of Integration for Access and Energy Security of the Caribbean Latin American Organization of Energy, OLARDE. At the end of last year, 2025, we managed to change our name officially, including the Caribbean region, representing better the work we do with this sub-region since 1973. So now we are the Latin American and Caribbean Organization for Energy, OLARDE. So we are at a decisive moment for energy transition in our region. Of course, we have renewable resources to place ourselves as one of the energy matrices in the clean sphere in the world, reaching more than 70% in 2025. We're privileged with great natural resources, and we're also leaders in renewable energies in our energy matrix. And there are important data reflected in our regional energy outlook. In 2024, renewable resources in the primary energy matrix represented 34% versus 14% in the global average and 69% of electricity generation, showing that we are the greenest region in the world, and there's great potential here. In fact, our region has only exploited about 16% of our wind resources, 30% of our hydroelectric potential, and only 2% of our solar and geothermal richness. We contribute 27% of biofuels and 5% of the global gas production, 10% of oil and 25% in critical minerals. Our region, Latin America and the Caribbean, represents the 5% of the global GDP in energy, supplying also in emissions, and that represents less than 5% in the energy sector. That represents 8.3% of global emissions in the world, but less than half of them, 3.6%, come from the energy sector, contrasting with the global average that we have in energy, in the energy sector, explaining that 70% of total emissions. But as a region, we have great challenges ahead. Our region is still confronting high inequality levels in energy access, clean cooking, and vulnerability regarding climate change and financial restrictions, making the development of resilient infrastructure difficult, also adding pressure to integrate disruptive technologies to ensure the reliability of supply and to respond to new dynamics in consumption demand. The next few years will be conditioned by a increasingly interdependent global agenda with great challenges and the transition towards cleaner energies, the digitalization of the sector, and the disruption of new stakeholders and business models that test the collective action and the effects of the climate crisis to consolidate our matrices to make them more fair. As we said, we have challenges ahead, and to continue with this transition, we need to strengthen the regional integration to access more diversified energy sources in each country, as well as energy efficiency, as stated by Ricardo, allows us to reduce our energy consumption without losing competitiveness. And we need to develop innovative initiatives in green hydrogen and storage to scale up towards decarbonization. These priorities are established within our working plans at OLADE, but also in many countries of the regions that have these in their energy agendas. To do that, we need the collaboration commitment of member countries. We have the agencies, institutions, the civil society, and the private sector, because we're not just talking about technical and financial challenges. We also have social challenges that we need to approach, because the main priority above all these needs is a fair energy transition that will not leave anyone behind. And I'd like to congratulate, amongst other initiatives, the Regional Energy Transition Outlook, the RETO for South America. Mentioned the presentation given by Irina that has given important and specific information that allows us to go from action to targets, to measure these impacts, aiming to continue the transition towards renewable transition, energy and technology, strengthen the regulatory framework, and here we're focusing on energy integration, and we have great examples, as mentioned in Ricardo's presentation. Central America is a regional market. We have Itaipu in the south, but there are many challenges that we're working on, and we need to keep doing so. The integration of the region's energy systems have been designed in autarky. So we need to develop interconnection projects for existing elements as well as new elements to increase and ensure these transitions. We also need to work on what we're doing from OLADE on a energy integration treaty at regional level to allow us to set the political and diplomatic basis towards regional cooperation, and we're already working on that according to our ministerial mandate. Along this path, OLADE has the opportunity to become a platform to articulate all these roadmaps towards these fair energy transition adapted to individual and collective realities of the region, also in strengthening our collaboration with integration spaces with events such as this one to interact with the countries, regional and also sub-regional members, with political cooperation advance with political dialogue amongst member countries, articulating research centers with universities and engaging the academy. Leading this discussion on strategic technologies and financing models, as well as regulations, and we can be the support as enablers and guarantors of this process, respecting the diversity of the region and availing of all of its potential, avoiding the application of extreme recipes that do not agree with our realities. So we volunteer to help and contribute in anything you need. Thank you. Thank you so much for your speech. We are happy to know that we have OLADE's support in the sessions and development of the Central American and the South American reports. We had their participation and we had the help of Guido Maulini mainly. And I think it's good to highlight all these topics regarding energy efficiency, storage, as well as the collaboration and cooperation in the region, which is important, and we see the benefits it brings about when we work in an integrated manner to reduce emissions regarding energy consumption and to boost the economy. So to continue, we'd like to hear about the COP30, and we have Luciano Caratori. Could you please share with us which actions, topics, and priorities were identified after the COP30 that may be applied to the Central America, South American, or the whole of the Latin American region? Thank you so much, Chrisley. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak in Spanish too. And I'd like to begin by thanking Irina for their leadership in the climate agenda work of the COP30, mainly in the energy industry and transport taxes that I had the pleasure of leading. And with a name and surname, I'd like to thank Ricardo Gorini and Ute Gollier and Simon Vermaras in the access to treble the installed capacity and to double the energy efficiency improvement rate and to guarantee energy access. My name is Luciano Caratori, and I support the climate champions whose mission is to work with non-state stakeholders to implement the necessary actions for the success of the Paris Agreement. And I thank Irina first because there is a strong link between these roadmaps and this dialogue between and with governments and mainly with non-state stakeholders, non-state actors, which is the action field of these climate champions that I support. And that was seen clearly in the COP30, mainly in the energy package, which was quite clear, at least in two terms. First, the boost and acknowledgement of the grids and the energy storage as key enabling factors for transition. And secondly, for sustainable or renewable fuels to speed this up, both in terms of mitigation and also adaptation, also in development and business opportunities for the Latin American and Caribbean region. In some fora, It seems to be more complex to discuss this link between good business and development, mitigation, and adaptation. So we welcome these roadmaps, mainly regarding how they give visibility to the social, economic, and potential benefits for business for the region.
One of the conclusions of the package at the COP30 was linked to this, was the need to cooperate between countries, between the public sector and the private sector, between offer and supply. And one of the advantages of RETO is that it focuses on the end user and how these supply and demand are combined that can reduce uncertainty, and reduce the perceived risk and therefore the cost of capital. And it was all around that. And transforming this into an effective deployment of distribution, and that will improve the lives of the people, that will allow people to make better businesses, that will lead to better life for these people. One of the cooperation examples that we saw at the COP30 was had to do with the implementation of the funding principles for networks, which was developed by the Green Network Initiative. I can see Marco Stewart, and with the presidency urged to enable or to adopt these principles that will improve the transmission networks and auxiliary services. And this is included in what the chair said, as to develop solutions, and some of the players are actually here sitting around, and as a link between the knowledge between RETO and the need to take that knowledge to action, and to ask Irina and the Axis One Secretariat, as well as us, to look for contribution opportunities that we can transform PowerPoints into power plants. And I wanted to add something into English because it sounds better than Spanish, that specific expression. Thank you very much. So, PowerPoints into power plants. That's a very good final statement. And regarding countries cooperation, we're going to hear about the Central America integrated system. But before, we would like to give the floor to El Salvador, and you would also like to have your input. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Valencia Interiano. I'm the permanent representative of El Salvador at IRENA. I would like to thank Irina, Ricardo Boriba, Ute, Jose, who are also here. We've worked very close at El Salvador, in all the Central America region with Irina. In the remap carried out at the region with the Flex tool, we worked a lot when the clean energy program existed. We received a lot of training for operators at the region with the support of Spain and the PII. And El Salvador will like that some of that program, that one training, come back to the region to continue strengthening. We want to have that training back to continue integrating the systems into the electrical regional market. And in order to strengthen the work done by the operators and the regulators in the region, for our delegation in the next program plan for the region, we would like to include the following items: the energy storage and the network infrastructure. Another item is the technical support to create capacities, digitalization, AI, for operating energy systems. I think these topics which I've just referred have a lot of importance right now. we are undergoing an EA era and how AI can help the operation. So we would like to ask for the support of IRENA to El Salvador, and we can also see that in the whole region. Thank you very
La
much.
verdad que agradecemos
Thank you.
los puntos indicados
I thank you for
justo
sharing
en lo que
those
fue
topics.
en el análisis de Sudamérica. Se
And in the
contempló
South America
la
analysis,
incorporación, o sea,
we
cuánto sería la
considered
demanda de la
the
implementación de data centers, inteligencia artificial. Así que es un
cooperation,
placer
and we
escuchar
also considered data
igual que hay
centers
interés en la región
implementation.
Centroamérica.
So it's we're happy to hear that
De
there's an interest
pronto, no sé
in
si,
some
Ricardo, no
regions.
sé si hay algún punto
I
que le
don't
gustaría
know,
mencionar
Ricardo,
de
if you
estos
wanted
temas o de
to
pronto
mention
cómo
something about these
IRENA
topics,
ha contribuido
or
justo en el
how
tema de
IRENA
capacitación,
has
de compartir
contributed
experiencias.
to
Adelante.
sharing experiences in capacity building, for example. Thank you very much. In terms of capacity building and training, Jose will talk about the network. And just to anticipate a little bit, Jose, allow me. So based on the things that we saw on the studies on the region, and looking at the exchange needs that are focused on the regions, and that's one of the items, how we can share among institutions that are working on that topic, and that's one of the items that we took note on for the process. Well, Jose will talk about the format, but how we can interact among ourselves so that we can share and deepen the knowledge around these topics. Thank you very much for that.
Gracias, Ricardo.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Bueno, a continuación tenemos entendido México.
So I think
Sí, tenemos la
next
intervención de México.
Mexico.
Adelante, muchísimas gracias.
Mexico is ready. Thank you, Mexico.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Primero que nada queremos agradecer al
I
secretariado
would
de
like to
IRENA por
thank the
organizar este
IRENA
evento
Secretariat for
paralelo
organizing
dedicado
this
a la región de
side
América Latina
event
y el Caribe.
dedicated to
Para
Latin
nosotros es
American
muy
and the Caribbean.
importante tener estos espacios
For
de
us, it's very
intercambio
important to have
sobre
these
nuestros retos
exchange
comunes.
spaces about our
También queremos
common
agradecer por la
challenges. We would
presentación tan
also like to
interesante.
thank
Si
the
bien los reportes presentados hoy
interesting
no incluyen a
presentations
México,
heard.
aportan
Although
reflexiones muy
studies do
valiosas
not
para
include
nuestro país.
Mexico, they do have very important contributions
México
that are
considera que la
important for our
transición
country.
energética en la
Mexico
región debe ser
considers
justa,
that the
inclusiva
energy
y adaptada
transition
a las
should be
realidades
fair,
nacionales,
inclusive, and
reconociendo las
adapted to
distintas
the
capacidades,
national
niveles de
needs,
desarrollo y
recognizing the
contextos
different
sociales.
development and levels and
Entre las
social context.
principales prioridades
Among the
regionales,
main
México
regional
identifica
priorities,
la
Mexico
expansión acelerada de
identifies
energías
the
renovables,
accelerated
particularmente
expansion of
solar,
renewable energies,
eólica,
especially
geotérmica
solar,
e
wind,
hidroeléctrica
geothermal, and
sostenible.
hydro, being
El
sustainable,
fortalecimiento de las redes
the
eléctricas de
strengthening of
interconexión regional
electrical
para
and
garantizar
interconnections
confiabilidad y resiliencia.
networks to
Desarrollo de
allow for a
hidrógeno verde y
resilience,
biocombustibles
development of
sostenibles con enfoque en
green
cadenas de
hydrogen
valor
and
locales.
biofuels in
Acceso
local
equitativo a
supply
energía
chains,
limpia,
access
especialmente para
to clean
comunidades
energy,
rurales
especially for
y
rural
vulnerables.
communities and
Desarrollo de
vulnerable
capacidades
communities,
humanas, tecnológicas
development
e
of
industriales,
human and
promoviendo la
technological
transferencia de tecnología
capabilities,
y valor agregado regional.
promoting the aggregated
Gestión
value
estratégica de
energy,
materiales críticos, asegurando la sostenibilidad,
strategic
trazabilidad y
management
beneficio
of
para los países
materials,
productores.
making sure that
El
producing
fortalecimiento de la
companies
cooperación
are
internacional mediante el intercambio de
benefited,
experiencias.
exchanging
México subraya
experiences
que la
between
transición
different markets.
energética debe contribuir
Mexico
simultáneamente a la seguridad
considers
energética,
that
el
this
desarrollo
energy
económico y
transition
la
should
reducción de desigualdades.
contribute to
Muchas
reduce
gracias.
inequalities. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias por indicar los
Thank
temas.
you very much
Bueno,
for covering these topics
ok.
and for sharing your
Solamente para
points.
mencionar,
Just
sí, toda la razón, es verdad, México
yes,
todavía no hemos hecho
Mexico,
el
well,
análisis.
it's
Sin
true, we
embargo,
haven't done
está
analysis on
contemplado
Mexico.
en lo que es
However,
el análisis global
it is
dentro del
considered
grupo del
in the
G20.
global analysis with the
Entonces,
G20.
igual, de cierta manera, también
So,
estamos siendo
in a
parte por
way,
parte.
we are
Nosotros
going
incluso, por
part
lo
by
menos lo que es de
part.
la región del
And
Caribe,
in the group
tenemos lo
in
que
the
es se ha
Caribbean,
trabajado una
we've
fase preparatoria.
worked in a
Entonces,
preparatory
estamos yendo
phase.
parte para ir
We are going
construyendo lo
bit
que es el
by bit
análisis país por
to
país.
build
Y en el caso de México, sí
country
lo
by
tenemos
country, but in
contemplado
Mexico,
en
it's
el análisis global, en lo que es el
considered
World
in
Energy
the
Transition Outlook. Y cualquier
in the
consulta
World Energy
se puede
Transition
comunicar también
Outlook.
con el
And
equipo
any
de IRENA.
query you can ask the team in
Y
IRENA.
bueno, solamente para continuar, tenemos
And
entonces la
just
intervención
to
de
then
Perú.
we
Sí,
are going to
adelante.
hear from Peru.
Muy buenos días.
Good morning, Alberto Farco. I'm the permanent representative at IRENA from Peru. Um, I would like to thank you for the excellent presentation. The challenge for South America, we need to just make decisions come to practice. So for Peru, this scenario is very important because it covers the advances that we are promoting at national level, and it allows us to identify where the regional can set the difference. Over the past year, over past recently year, Peru has promoted its energy matrix based on renewable energy and has allowed to include wind and solar at a bigger scale by using competitive mechanisms. Projects like Punta Lomitas, one of the biggest wind farms in the country, or PV farms show how having a clear regulatory framework can bring in investment and can accelerate renewable deployment. The challenge asks for escalating and scaling up these, and the fact that we need to have even more coordination. These progress have shown a shared challenge in South America, the transmission infrastructure. In the case of Peru, in the projects of strengthening Mantaro and Carapongo project, they look for improving the electrical system so that we can have a higher renewable penetration. At a regional level, we need to have a more integrated approach so that we can facilitate exchanges and investments. Peru is putting its stakes in new technologies, as we can see the approval of a Green Hydrogen Act that offers opportunities for industrial development, decarbonization of certain sectors, and employment. The challenge is that these technologies can only scale up if the countries coordinate their standards, share knowledge, and we reduce risks by having cooperation mechanism. So, in this context, the experience of the Central American region is a very valuable one, like having a shared planning, and it shows that energy integration is not just a technical objective, but a specific mechanism to reduce costs and to attract investment. South America can learn a lot from this model by adapting it to their own reality. And to conclude, Peru considers that energy transition should be measured by its social impact. Our efforts in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and electrification look for improving employment, strengthening capabilities, and going for a fair transition. A transition electrical transition could benefit this by having exchange of experiences and promoting human capital. Peru reaffirms its commitment to work with IRENA and with Latin American and Central American countries to share the progress at national level and regional progress too, so that we can have more shared benefits for our societies. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Just to reinforce some of the topics with regards to the integrated planning and the expansion of infrastructure. In the South American report, we looked at sensitivities. So considering the a more ambitious decarbonization scenario, what happened if prices would go down? What would happen if we deploy the hydro potential? What would happen if the electrical infrastructure would expand. Actually, the report provides outcomes, both in terms of energy as well as in investments, and it looks at the impact of this. Another item that you mentioned is the measurement of social impact. The report does look at the social impact, and we have part of the team here. And one of the outcomes we're talking about 12 million employments or jobs, and some of them are related to renewable energies. I would like to thank your commitment with Irina. And with regards to the Central American integration, we have Dominican Republic, who will talk about their lessons learned and suggestions with regards to SICA. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. From a Caribbean Seeds and Dominican Republic perspectives, lesson from SICA can help strengthen region integration in three ways. First, integration requires institutional community and continuity and a standing mechanism for political direction and technical coordination, so we can sustain implementation beyond electoral cycles. Second, we cannot look at scale by harmonized rules and standards, grid codes, contracting practice, and risk allocation. So projects and investment can move more efficiently across borders. And third, seeds need integration that delivers bankable pipelines and finance, shared project preparation facilities, regional de-risking instruments, and structured engagement with MDBs and the private sector, building on investment forum approach to convert priorities into investable portfolios. A concrete example is our joint work with GRULAT and IRENA on the Transborder Sargassum Challenge, mapping initiative and identify priorities, action that can structure it in bankable projects, strengthening resilience while fostering regional cooperation are needed. And we want to repeat our great feelings and give the thank you to Irina for the cooperation in the region and especially in the Dominican Republic in this support for the development of renewable energy and energy transition. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias por la intervención del representante de República Dominicana.
Thanks so much for your speech, the representative from the Dominican Republic. If any other country would like to speak up or mention their priorities in terms of energy transition in your country or in your region, please go ahead. Over here? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. My name is Annalie Bab. Sorry. Yeah, my name is Annalie Bab. I'm the permanent representative of Barbados to IRENA. I'd like to thank Irina for organizing this very important session on pathways for renewable future across Latin America and Caribbean subregions. We are extremely pleased to be here and to be included with Latin America on these important issues. For Barbados and other states, renewable energy is not only a climate response, it is a developmental imperative, an affordability issue, and an equity issue. Our energy transition is about reducing dependence on imported fossil fuels, stabilizing electricity prices, and freeing national budgets to better support social and economic development. Barbados has reached a pivotal stage where energy storage is indispensable to unlocking further renewable energy deployment. We face multiple hurdles with respect to financing our renewable energy transition. As a small island developing state, Barbados needs tailored financing solutions to translate our renewable energy ambition into sustainable reality. Caribbean SIDS operate small, isolated grids, unlike many Latin American countries with interconnected systems and large hydro resources. High perceived risk results in a higher cost of capital, highlighting the importance of partnerships with multilateral institutions and concessional finance. Without access to finance, without access to battery energy storage systems, we will not be able to meet our climate goals. And this is true of all small island developing states. We face structural disadvantages, including small procurement volumes, limited economies of scale, and higher storage costs. In addition, accessing concessional finance is often constrained by onerous application processes and limited human resources. And quite frankly, we feel sometimes within our small island developing states that these challenges, limitations, and vulnerabilities are not well understood by our larger and perhaps more well-endowed colleagues in terms of financial resources. So Barbados supports differentiated approaches that recognize SID's vulnerabilities and offer simplified, more accessible financing pathways. And in that regard, to speak to the second issue on the agenda with respect to how IRENA might help us in our energy transition, with respect to technical assistance, we would welcome continued support on energy storage planning, on valuation of grid services, and stacked use models, and also technical cooperation on wind resource assessment, turbine selection, and hybrid wind plus storage configurations. With respect to finance and investment mobilization, we would like facilitation of concessional and blended finance instruments for BESS and wind plus storage projects, and advocacy with multilateral lenders to simplify and streamline application procedures while maintaining due diligence. With respect to SID's equity and advocacy, we would like to see stronger representation of SID's specific challenges in IRENA's analytical work and global advocacy, exploration of a dedicated or preferential procurement window for energy storage for SIDs, recognizing small order sizes and long lead times. And finally, continued leadership by IRENA, including through the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative, to champion equitable access to storage and finance. And I would like to conclude just by noting, I'm sure that all of our colleagues here are aware, but I'd like to stress that Barbados is an island that is 21 miles long and 14 miles wide. Our population is 280,000 people. And the challenges we face, I think, are peculiar to many small island developing states, and we need to have solutions that allow us to be a part of this evolution as it continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention, and thank you for highlighting all the priorities. Actually, in the case of our IRENA, we are fostering, we are trying to continue with the analysis of the Caribbean region. So thank you very much for highlighting all the priorities. We're going to take that into account. Hopefully this year we can continue with that energy modeling development, and we're going to pass to these priorities also to the team that is working on SIDS. Bueno, para continuar y de pronto ya en la última intervención tenemos a Bahamas.
For the last intervention, we have the Bahamas. Please go ahead.
This is Tony Judy, Bahamas Ambassador to the UAE, and to my left I have John Bolek from the Office of the Prime Minister. At present, we have no update, but we shall be reaching out to you very soon. We have been engaged with others to obtain additional IRENA requested information. We have continued to advance OTEC, which is the ocean energy, thermal energy that produces electricity. We have continued to advance OTEC discussions under the following: European Union Global Climate Change Alliance Plus Initiative, EU-GCCA+. from 2021 through March 2025. So from 2025 up to now, we have nothing. I mean, 26 now. EU Euroclimate project started on March 2025 and signed MOU between the Institute of Ocean Energy and Saga University, Japan, and University of the Bahamas on OTEC technology in September 2023. We shall soon collate all efforts and return to our prior discussions with IRENA. On the OTEC technology, when we do engage IRENA, we shall also have additional international regional partners to assist in our continued discussions with IRENA. We shall definitely be meeting with you prior to re-engage with IRENA and the OTEC proposal. The most recent discussions with IRENA were in December 2023, which I made the pledge that I will speak with them in very short order, and that's why Mr. John Bolek is here. The last one was COP28, and we're hoping in short order, maybe today, we could have more discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. And yeah, definitely, Irina, yeah, to support in the initiatives in the case of Bahamas. Bueno, con esto damos entonces por finalizado lo que es la intervención de los países.
So we hereby finish the country's intervention. We'd like to thank you for your participation, your assistance, your attendance, also to regional organizations present here today. And I'll now give the floor to José Torón. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Chrisley, y muchas gracias a todos.
Thanks so much, Priestley. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the session. Also, Ricardo, thank you for the presentation. And briefly, before we close the session, we have mentioned a lot towards the follow-up of these reports. Since we created the Central American report, we talked about how to trickle down this information to achieve implementation. Ricardo mentioned it, as well as Priestley, and many participants too. And our aim is to create the energy transition network. The aim for this network is to enable the exchange of knowledge and best practices, but also to strengthen the cooperation for the implementation of energy transition. The aim is not just to guide the topics to approach, but also to achieve consensus amongst the participants of the collaboration areas that may require more interest, such as electrification or green integration. We mentioned storage a lot, and the aim is to take these two Central and South American reports as a baseline to feed this energy transition network. We like all present institutions in the energy sector from the region and member countries to participate, as well as multilateral organizations that have worked in the region. And the format is based on having contact with focal points, having annual sessions here in the Assembly, but also having virtual sessions so they can be quicker and more effective throughout the year. And it's important to mention that this next report, where we are in prior stages to do it for the Caribbean, also includes Mexico. So it's Mexico and the Caribbean. So it's a joint report for Mexico and the Caribbean region. And we do hope to have news soon. I'd just like to thank you all who are present here for coming here today, and to all participants from the countries. Priestley, Ricardo, and everyone who participated in developing this report from the Knowledge, Policy and Finance Center of IRENA. And that's all from me. Thank you so much for participating, and have a great day. And if you want to take part in the family picture we're going to take here, please join us, especially if you are country representatives. Thank you.